should have known it would be a disaster the moment my sister, Clara, called me with a giddy voice. "Leela, you have to meet Ethan at dinner tonight. He's charming, funny, and well, you'll see." I forced a smile, feeling the familiar twist of dread in my stomach. Clara had always been the golden child, beautiful, confident, effortlessly adored. And now she had a new boyfriend who apparently thrived on mocking me. The restaurant was busy, buzzing with chatter and clinking glasses, the kind of place where first impressions mattered. Clara arrived radiant as always, wearing a dress that seemed designed to make me feel invisible. Ethan, on the other hand, had that smug, easy smile that seemed too practiced to be genuine. He shook my hand and said, "So, the little sister, how's life treating you, Leela?" Still quiet as ever. I froze for a split second, not expecting the jab so soon. Clara laughed, the same high, airy sound that had always made me feel like I was standing on the outside of her world. "Oh, stop, Ethan," she said, brushing it off, but the smirk on his face didn't disappear. Dinner began, and with every attempt to make small talk, Ethan's barbed comments found their mark. He mocked my quiet nature, my choice of career, even the way I laughed. Each comment was small on its own, but together they created a crescendo of humiliation. And everyone laughed Clara, my parents, even distant relatives I barely knew. I felt my face burn, my hands clenching under the table. I wanted to leave, I wanted to scream, but something inside me froze, watching him grin like a predator who just claimed his prey. I knew then that this wasn't just teasing. This was deliberate, a test of power, and I refused to let him see how much it hurt. I kept my voice calm, almost too calm. "That's funny, Ethan," I said, smiling tightly. "I didn't know you were such an expert on my life." The words sounded hollow even to me, but the fire in my chest was growing, and I promised myself I wouldn't let this humiliation end here. As dessert arrived, Clara chatted with Ethan, oblivious to the storm brewing in me. I looked at him, this man who had dared to belittle me in front of my family, and I felt a strange mixture of anger and clarity. This wasn't the first time I had been overshadowed, nor would it be the last, but I realized something crucial. Humiliation fades, but strategy lasts. When the evening ended and we left the restaurant, Ethan's triumphant smile stayed plastered across his face. But as I walked behind Clara, silent and simmering, I made a vow to myself. One day, I would turn this around, and when I did, no one, including him, would be able to laugh at me again. The day after the disastrous dinner, I stayed in my room, replaying every word Ethan had said. Every laugh, every snide remark. It was like a recording etched into my mind. I could still hear the echo of Clara's giggle, the way our parents' eyes sparkled with amusement at my expense. It made my chest ache, but beneath that ache, a cold, determined resolve began to form. I realized something important. I didn't need to confront him with anger or tears. That would be predictable. Anyone could lash out and look foolish. No, my revenge had to be clever, controlled, and unexpected. I needed to be invisible until the moment I struck, so I began observing. Ethan's world, his habits, the way he carried himself, all became data. I noticed the subtle insecurities behind his confident grin, the way he bragged when nervous, the way he fidgeted with his cufflinks, the way his charm faltered when someone outshone him. I started keeping a notebook, jotting down everything, from his favorite anecdotes to the stories he exaggerated to impress people. Each detail was a piece of a puzzle I would assemble carefully. Meanwhile, life at home became tense. Clara, oblivious as ever, continued to gush about Ethan, unknowingly echoing his mockery. "He said you're so serious, Leela," she said one morning, laughing. "I think it's adorable, don't you?" I smiled politely, my jaw tight. Adorable. Humiliating is more like it. I decided that if revenge was to have its sweet, satisfying effect, it had to be public somewhere. Ethan's ego would make him careless. Then came the perfect opportunity, a charity gala he had been bragging about for weeks. Ethan planned to attend as the life of the party, flaunting his charm and influence. The perfect stage for me to subtly dismantle him, piece by piece. In the days leading up to the gala, I honed my plan. I practiced conversations in the mirror, rehearsed my expressions, and carefully crafted a persona that would draw attention without seeming threatening. I needed to be impeccable, charming, intelligent, and graceful, so that when the moment came, Ethan's arrogance would become his downfall in front of everyone. The more I planned, the more I realized something unexpected. I was transforming my humiliation into power. Each observation, each detail I noted, wasn't just about revenge, it was about control. For the first time in a long while, I felt capable. Not like the sister who always faded into the background, not like the girl everyone laughed at. I was building something, and Ethan was the catalyst. By the night of the gala, I would be ready. Ethan would walk in expecting to charm the crowd, to mock and belittle me if I were there. But he wouldn't see me coming, not truly, and when the moment arrived, I would take everything he had, his pride, his control, and the laughter that had once been at my expense, and beneath it all, a strange thrill coursed through me. Revenge wasn't just about humiliation, it was about reclaiming myself. The night of the gala arrived, and with it, a wave of anticipation I hadn't felt in years. I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing the fabric of my dress, adjusting my hair until it fell just right. Gone was the nervous, overlooked girl from last week's dinner. In her place stood someone poised, radiant, and subtly formidable. Tonight wasn't about proving anything to my sister or my family. It was about showing Ethan that he had underestimated me. The gala hall sparkled with chandeliers and soft laughter, the kind of event where appearances mattered more than intentions. Ethan was already there, holding court as usual, flashing his practiced smile, spinning stories that drew polite applause. My entrance caught his eye, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of recognition. Or was it apprehension? Either way, it fueled the fire in me. I moved through the crowd with effortless grace, laughing and exchanging pleasantries, all the while listening. I watched Ethan closely, noting how he sought attention, how he fumbled with compliments, how his charm faltered under subtle challenges. Each interaction I observed was another piece of ammunition, and I collected them silently, waiting for the perfect moment. It came sooner than expected. Ethan approached a small group where I was standing, his grin confident. "Leela," he said, "I didn't expect to see you here, trying to steal the spotlight tonight." His words carried that same condescending tone, meant to unsettle me. I smiled, warm, controlled, magnetic. "Ethan," I said softly, "I wouldn't dream of stealing it. I just thought someone should point out a few inconsistencies in your stories. It seems some of your adventures aren't quite as adventurous as you make them sound." The laughter was small at first, polite, but as I began weaving subtle observations, little exaggerations he had made, contradictions I had caught, people leaned in. The group grew, curious. Ethan's confident smile faltered, then wavered, then cracked. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't mock him. I let the truth and subtle charm do the work. By the end of the evening, Ethan was flustered, apologetic, and clearly uncomfortable. The crowd had shifted. His charisma no longer commanded attention. Meanwhile, I moved through the room with quiet satisfaction, basking in the realization that humiliation delivered with grace and strategy was far sweeter than anger ever could be. Clara approached me later, eyes wide. "Leela, I had no idea." Her voice trailed off, a mixture of awe and guilt. I smiled gently. "It's not about him," I said. "It's about me." As I watched Ethan slink into the shadows, flustered and defeated, I felt a strange liberation. The girl who had endured ridicule at the dinner table was gone. In her place was someone who had reclaimed her dignity, not with anger, but with precision and patience. For the first time, I understood the true power of quiet revenge. It didn't destroy me, it elevated me. And as I stepped out of the gala into the crisp night air, I knew that everything had changed not just for Ethan, but for myself. The morning after the gala, the house felt quieter than usual. Ethan was gone, socially diminished, his ego bruised, and suddenly absent from the conversations he once dominated. The relief that should have come with his departure was tinged with a quiet triumph. I had done what I promised myself. I had taken control, turned humiliation into power, and walked away with my dignity intact. Clara appeared in the kitchen, her eyes hesitant, as if she didn't know where to begin. Leela, about last night, she said softly. I had no idea he was that kind of person. Her voice faltered, guilt lacing every word. I could see the realization in her eyes, the recognition that she had laughed at my expense, that she had been blind to what I endured. I took a deep breath. Part of me wanted to gloat, to savor the vindication, but instead, I offered her a small, sincere smile. It's not about him, I said gently. It's about me. I finally stopped letting others define my worth. Clara nodded slowly, her expression a mixture of shame and admiration. I'm sorry, Leela, I really am. I should have seen it sooner, should have seen you sooner. I felt a warmth spread through me, not from revenge, but from something deeper. Forgiveness wasn't weakness, it was liberation, and it made my victory even sweeter. I spent the day reflecting on what had happened, the humiliation of that dinner, the hours I had poured into observing and planning, and finally, the gala. The anger that had fueled me was gone, replaced by a calm certainty. I had transformed pain into power. Every insult, every mocking laugh, had become a stepping stone, shaping me into someone unshakable. The most unexpected part was how I felt about Ethan. I didn't feel hatred or bitterness, just a quiet satisfaction. He had underestimated me, as so many had, and in his arrogance, he had become his own undoing. Seeing him flustered and diminished was a lesson, not just for him, but for me. People who try to hurt you rarely account for your resilience, your intelligence, or your patience. By evening, life returned to a gentle rhythm. Clara and I talked, laughed, and shared stories in a way we hadn't for months. There was no awkward tension, only the beginning of a renewed sisterhood one, where I was no longer overshadowed. My confidence had grown, solid and unshakable, a quiet force that would not be mocked again. As I lay in bed that night, I realized that sweet revenge had more to do with myself than with anyone else. It wasn't about proving Ethan wrong. It was about proving to myself that I could rise above humiliation, that I could turn pain into strategy, and that I could reclaim my dignity without compromising my integrity, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free.